Alright, I am back with another Destiny 2 video, and I don't usually do this where I do a video that's just like my Forbes article for the day, but this is kind of a unique case because I put a lot of time into this one, and I think there's some room to kind of expand on the points I brought up here. This article is based on Cozmo, who posted a tweet the other day, or was it yesterday? Yeah. That he wants kind of feedback to start out 2023. He started a Reddit thread, which you can visit here, and you're supposed to reply here, and then the Destiny community team will be going through all these responses, and like, it's not like they're gonna, for sure address everything mentioned here, but like, this is part of like the whole, how to solicit feedback, like grouping it into categories, like how many people suggested one thing, etc., etc., etc. So rather than reply on Reddit, because I have a different platform than some people, I just did a article about it, and I wanted to kind of go through my suggestions, many of which you probably can already see here. You are probably well familiar with at this point in terms of kind of complaints I have about the game, but others are new. Others are things I forgot about for a really long time, but things that still need to be addressed over time. I've grouped it into like quality of life stuff, short-term stuff, midterm stuff, and long-term stuff. And I don't actually know how like development time works, so the things I'm saying are short or midterm, could be long-term, I don't know. But, that's what we, have to kind of work with when we're not in the industry here. All right, I'm also viewing this in the back end of Forbes. You can see behind the scenes, behind the magic. Mostly I'm doing this so there aren't any ads on the page, so it's easier to go through. Okay, I'm not going to read this like word for word, but obviously I am starting with blues. This has kind of become a meme with me at this point because it is the one thing I keep suggesting, but like I am hardly the only person suggesting this. And like if you go to the Reddit thread, like practically every other suggestion, here you go, please auto dismantle blues after you hit the power. Okay, like every other suggestion mentions something about blues and blues management. I tried to not spend like a ton of time on this. I tried to just distill it down to really 3 elements. You could do all of these things, or you could do even one of them would help, but or you could do some combination of them. But like 3 main issues: blues should not go to the postmaster, period. I would argue. If you can't do that, blues should at least not take priority over legendary items or, a stack of 10 Ascendant shards or 50 Ascendant prisms. No reason that they should push out that other stuff. Other games like Borderlands Lost Loot Pickup thing, it's a priority system. So like it will prioritize your most rare loot, and then anything below that it will push out. Whereas Destiny is wholly chronologically based. So whatever you find most recently is the thing that's there, whether that's if you just run in, 3 strikes in a row and you're full of blues from that, or if you're opening a bunch of dawning packages and you're full of blues from that, the blues will push out everything else, as I'm sure most of us have experienced at least one point in time. Another option is just a setting to auto dismantle blues on pickup, so they just automatically convert into weapons parts. Or no, wait, do we have weapons parts anymore? I forget what. Yeah, everything is weapon parts now. For what's his face? Banshee. So this seems like something that should be pretty easy to do, considering that Destiny 1 had auto dismantle of greens eventually. I don't really know what is preventing this from happening or why they would prevent this from happening, but we are in, entering year 6 here, and this has still not happened. 3 is kind of related. Blues should maybe just stop dropping altogether, or are automatically auto dismantled when you've hit the current base power cap. Whoops, typo. Update. Yes. When you hit the current base power cap, because there's just no reason to get blues after that point. So this should just be sort of an automatic system. Even Marvel's Avengers figured this out after like a couple of months, where once you hit like X amount of power, they will just stop dropping, blue tier items. So you're only getting like, legendary and exotic gear essentially. So I don't think this is asking too much. I tried to make this not my entire thing, so we'll move on from that. Currencies. We still have way too many currencies. We have a lot of leftover stuff from the expansions. Like this stuff is all from the Dreaming City, which I don't think we need. We have stuff from Shadowkeep, and we have stuff from, well, Forsaken finally got disabled, but we have stuff from Witch Queen. There are too many expansion based currencies that we have. I think all of that should eventually be just replaced by like, okay, you want to run Blind Well, like Blind Well should be free. No reason to put a charge of light into something. Just turn on the machine and Blind Well will start. Like that's really all you need to do. Some of this might be harder, like the tincture thing might be a little more difficult, but generally speaking, we gotta just reduce the stuff on this page. There's too much stuff. They did a little bit of this with, so like obviously they deleted planetary materials, that's a good start. They deleted weapon telemetries, that's a good start. No more tokens, also good. And now you could turn in things like phantasmal fragments for Glimmer. So like we're getting there. It's still just like not quite where it needs to be. And also one additional part of this is Rainmaker and Matterweave consumables, the things that give you more Glimmer or give you an enhancement core. Very weird. I don't know why those still exist. Like if you're gonna drop one of these, like just give us a bunch of Glimmer instead of having us do 350 uses of these. Or if you're gonna have a Matterweave, just give us the enhancement core. Like no reason to actually, demand we activate that, then kill a orange bar enemy and get it. Don't see the reason for that. Okay. Encounter damage. This has been a request for a long time. You only get to see encounter damage or stats on an encounter when you fail. When you succeed, you do not get to see anything. I don't see a reason you can't at least pop that screen up for a few seconds when you clear an encounter. It's good information to have for, not like shaming your teammates who did the least damage, but like it's good information to have in terms of, if you cleared the encounter, what worked, what could have been better, stuff like that. This one, buff and debuff icons. We have reached a point where on all the 3.0 builds, there are just so many, especially buff icons, that I think they can only list something like 4 at a time. So the rest of them are getting pushed off the page entirely. So you might have volatile rounds active, but because you have so many other buffs going on, you have no idea that it's actually active. I feel like you need more than just like, okay, we're going to list all the buffs active at a given time, because then you have like 8 stacks of text here. I think we need some additional solutions to show what is actually active at any given time. Last quality of life thing I have is favoriting shaders. This is the ability to either sort shaders, like sort them chronologically in terms of the last ones you used, or sort them by, like you can just right click on them and that's your favorite or something. Like we could favorite, or we can at least lock gear. So I feel like if you could lock a shader to have it show up on the first page, that would be ideal. All right, that's last quality of life for now. Short term, a ping system. This has been something that has been a pretty common request for a long time now. Almost all other shooters have some sort of ping system. I think the main game that really started this was Apex Legends, and then kind of every other shooter adopted it, except, of course, Destiny, which does not have a ping system. This would be great for no mic runs on LFGs. Everyone is pretty much doing no mic stuff for the most part. It's also an accessibility option for those who, are unable to speak or do not want to verbally communicate. Like, I think this is just a good idea for everyone. I said that the D-pad maybe should be involved in this, and we don't need the entire D-pad just to play 4 emotes. I believe the D-pad should be, like, if you hold down or something or hold up, then you can bring up an emote wheel and just do it that way. I don't think this, the current system of just mapping 4 emotes to the 4 D-pad buttons is a good way to do it. And I think the rest of that could be implemented into a ping system, as we've seen the D-pad used in ping systems in a lot of games. Iron Banner drop rates. Not enough Iron Banner gear drops at the end of games. That's pretty self-explanatory. I think everyone agrees with that. Exotic armor drop rates. Trying to farm these from lost sectors is a freaking nightmare. Like, trying to get a specific roll on a specific exotic takes way too many runs, and it's always just kind of a disastrous time. I don't like the current system. I think they have to up these rates given how hard it is to get the thing you want, the distribution you want, the total stats you want. It's way too hard. Crafting. This is a pretty small crafting section for me. I really do like the changes they made this season. This has felt like probably the best, most coherent season of crafting they've done yet, with all the different ways you could get red border weapons as opposed to past seasons. That said, I do still think knocking it down to 3 or 4 total patterns as opposed to 5 would be the better option here. I still think it's just a little bit oppressive and annoying, and like if I can't just petition to delete crafting in general, like that ship has sailed. I would hope they do this. Transmog cap. This is something that I used to complain about a lot, and now, admittedly, it's not really as big of a deal as it once was because it's almost like an afterthought. You just kind of have to remember to do it every season, but like, I still don't know why it exists. I still don't think it should exist. I cannot believe that paid purchase transmog is a significant revenue generator remotely for Bungie. Like, you can buy the neutral, the ability to transmog a single set of gear. I think it's like $10 for a set of gear. I cannot imagine who is buying that. I'm like the biggest transmog person ever, and I've never bought that, and I bought a ton of other stuff from the store. It's like the worst microtransaction. So like, if it's not making any money, if it serves no purpose, then just get rid of the cap. I don't see a reason to keep it around. Speaking of caps, materials caps. I think we are all pretty tired of hitting the cap on various materials. The most pressing ones are probably alloy and shards, especially with shards. Getting those from Master, Grandmaster, Nightfall rewards, especially where they're pretty common. We've seen people have to resort to just dumping shards into crappy exotics pulled from collections because there is literally nowhere else to store them. They will just sit in your postmaster and risk being deleted by blues, or you have to just spend them on stuff that is not deserving of it. So it's the caps they have in place for a lot of materials are really irritating. I don't like stuff like the glimmer cap, at 250, whatever. That's probably fine at this point, but for the upgrade materials in specifically, I think that's something that needs to come down. Midterm. Stasis Strand Supers. I like that we're getting Darkness subclasses, but now that we have the Grand 3.0 rework, I think that we have gotten in a weirdly unbalanced situation where it doesn't feel great to only have one option for a Stasis Super for each class. I may be a little biased as a Warlock main, where the Warlock Super in PvE is not terribly good, I would argue. And I just wish there was another alternative there. Like, all of the light subclasses have an alternative, and the problem is, from what we've seen with Strand, that's going to happen again. There's only going to be one Strand Super. So it's a little odd to have, assuming we're going to get a third Darkness subclass by the time Destiny 2 is over, to have the light classes all have 2, and the Darkness subclasses all have 1. That does not seem very balanced, and I think it's a reason that people might not use those as much as they might otherwise. The new light experience is very bad. Like, the new light experience in Destiny is essentially know someone who plays Destiny so they can explain everything to you. I'm hesitant to say like too much on this because I know they're implementing the new Guardian rank system, which is meant to address this to a certain extent. It gives you a number of like tasks to complete within the game to kind of learn the systems and stuff. So like, I guess we'll see how that goes. But one other point I make here is that I think they need to start going back to adding old expansions to the game for free. I think it was a huge mistake to vault Forsaken. Forsaken should have been made free. That is a great, if they already deleted Red War, Forsaken was a really kind of coherent campaign, very structured, very well done. That would have been a great free kind of onboarding campaign for players. Now it's gone, and that sucks. Shadowkeep is not as good of a campaign, and yet I still think that Shadowkeep should probably be free at this point. You can't just keep adding expansions and then having this totally disjointed game where you need 4 different expansions and like all these different purchases to kind of make it whole. I don't think that's a good system, and it's very unfriendly for new players. So you have to add more stuff to the free-to-play pool in time that's not just a unvaulted Destiny 1 raid or something, or like a dungeon. Like, you need more than they've been giving here. Speaking of content vaulting, I am very much petitioning for them to add the best exotic missions into the Legends tab. It is, you remember when PT came out, and it was the demo that was like a preview for a new Silent Hill game, and then the whole thing was scrapped and they deleted PT, and it was like this crazy you have a PlayStation that downloaded PT. It's like this piece of video game history. Like, that is what this is, except on a worse scale, because these are some of the best missions in Destiny 2 history that are literally unplayable, or like I'm assuming Seraph Shields will be deleted, and they are literally unplayable. I'm not saying they're like terribly relevant, and like there are ways to get these exotics and catalysts and stuff they've changed already, and like I don't know how to make them relevant again necessarily. It feels like they need to exist in this game. I cannot believe that they would make some of the best missions, in 10 years of Destiny or whatever we're approaching soon, and just had these deleted forever. Like the Red War campaign, like, okay, fine, but that's not like anything to write home about to any great extent. Whereas these missions in particular, I would argue, are some of the best the game has ever offered, and it is a crime to not have them there. So I want them to come back. I'm like So on Harbinger or Vox Obscura if they really need to save space. Those are a little more optional for me. Midterm, Crucible and Gambit maps. This one is very obvious. Obviously, we have been extremely short on Crucible maps. They are doing one brand new Crucible map a year, maybe a couple unvaultings, maybe one from Destiny 1. That's not enough. I don't care if everyone else is working on PvP games in the incubator that are not Destiny. This is not a healthy way to manage a PvP mode, especially not one that hundreds of thousands of people play every week. And then Gambit, like, it is supposed to be the third pillar of the Vanguard playlist system, or the core pillar activities. The rituals, that's what they're called. No new Gambit maps since Season of the Drifter, which was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, no, 4, I don't know. It was a long time ago. And we deleted 2 maps, and we have not gotten them back when sunsetting happened. I'm not like Mr. Gambit, and yet I do think we need both of those old maps to return and some new Gambit maps at some point. All right, long term. These are longer term goals that I recognize are big asks and like big kind of more nebulous concepts that it's not just like turn off blues. It's a little more complicated. So long-term seasonal structure. This kind of goes back to what people were feeling at the end of Season of Plunder. I think Season of Seraph has been better received, and yet there was an overall sense of Destiny doling out seasons the way they have been is getting a little rote, getting a little repetitive. We have the 3 to 6 man seasonal activity. We have the time-gated upgrades of 2 a week where you need to upgrade 3 rows of 7 blocks. We have the Helm Vendor. We have the Artifact. We have, like, so much of it is the same every single season that even if the story changes, even if the location changes, it just feels too similar. And I am hoping for something to kind of, break the wheel here, except the reason seasons have kind of gotten larger in size is because Bungie has sort of gotten this thing down to a science where they're able to produce more physical seasonal content than they ever have, and yet the problem remains. It still feels too repetitive because it's packaged the same way. So I don't know what the exact answer here is, but even Joe Blackburn said that they're going to be kind of modifying this in some ways. And this season I think we saw that a little bit. Like I think Operation Seraph's Shield and how that. You're doing that weekly for different aspects of the exotic quest. Like, even that's a little different. So maybe there's some progress there, but I think we need more. Long term, engine server overhaul. Destiny is just a game that is aging. We have beautiful skyboxes and things, and we have some cool armor sets and shaders, but like technologically, Destiny is starting to get passed by. I mean, if not, already has been by many games. Destiny 2 is a game that came out in 2017, so we're coming up on 6 years ago, and that is not super recent at this point. Bungie has been upgrading their engine. They did like some lighting overhauls and stuff, and yet I do sort of wonder when the full next generation of Destiny will arrive here, which sort of ties into the next point. Because I don't think the current game can just exist in perpetuity here. That also has to do with their kind of back-end server issues. We have seen the game breaking down time and time again, time after time. This season they had to turn off the API twice just to get it stable again. We just had a thing yesterday where match completions, Gambit completions weren't counting. People were getting anteatered. Most of the season I'd be getting a centipede error every time I turn the game on. Like, things are kind of falling apart behind the scenes, and I do wonder what is happening and what the solution to that is, because we have not heard a lot about that other than Bungie helping, like, we're fixing this, like, every so often. And then finally, long term, like, what are the post-final shape plans? The only thing they have really said so far is that Destiny will have another saga, but they did reference, like, Destiny 2 will have another saga, implying that after the final shape, they are still going to be making seasonal expansion content within Destiny 2. So that would be 2025, like probably early winter, spring 2025 is the next saga of Destiny, but we don't fully know what that means. And I do fundamentally wonder, like, when is the generational leap? Like, you cannot just build on Destiny 2 forever. Like, even if you get up to 7, 8 years, like, after that, like, I feel like you are going to have to hit a break point where you hit the reset button, you do a clean slate, overhaul the engine, overhaul everything, and just kind of start over again. And I agree that Destiny 2 was probably too fast after Destiny 1. It felt not amazing to just kind of wipe out all Destiny 1 content and then slowly, feed it back into Destiny 2. Like, we're still reprising Destiny 1 stuff to this day. I don't, it's not literally going to be Destiny 3, like they have said that, but like, if it's World of Destiny or just Destiny with no number, I do want to know what the ultimate long-term future is of Destiny, or at least the vision they think they have in mind here, alongside their other new IPs that they're building. So that is one thing I'm hoping that we get some answers for. I'm not really expecting that anytime soon, but it is something that I think is pretty important. So that is my feedback. I am not covering everything, but that is a good amount of stuff, and I have no idea if Bungie will read this. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.